It's me. Oh my gosh, this is that triangle.
You know, there's explanation for everything that occurred in the Rendlesham forest incident that doesn't involve aliens at all.
It was completely silent. It comes right over our heads.
He saw a classic flying saucer really standing in a clearing.
He turned over to my father and held his hand, and he looked in his eyes and he said, "We're not alone."
Welcome to Podcast UFO for our live show. During the show, feel free to participate live in our chat room. And don't forget to like us on our very active Facebook page.
Hello, and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. And we have an exciting show tonight. We have Randall Nickerson, but we have a special guest coming up. We recorded with him earlier today, and I want to thanks to Joe Call for that. We have Francis Chirimuuta, and he is one of the witnesses to the event itself. So that is pretty exciting, and he'll be coming up. We're going to play the clip that we recorded. It's the middle of the night where he is in Madagascar. So we recorded with him earlier, just a couple of short clips, but it's still great to have him on, and what a great guy he is. So you can look forward to that. And also, I want to thank everyone that supports the show. Anyone can do that over at podcastufo.com. All that information's there. Our Facebook icon is there if you want to connect with Facebook. Our blog this week from Charles Lear is called UFO Secrecy. Check that out. It's, Citizens Against UFO Secrecy. A little different there. So check that out on that website. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start out, and I'm going to play the trailer to the film that is coming up. And Randall Nickerson spent many, many years making. I think it's 7 to 9 years, something like that. I've known Randall for quite a while, many years, since back in 2006, I believe. 12, that is. Anyway, he is super fussy with his work, and you should look at his wildlife photography. Those links are in the show notes. It's just amazing. He does a wonderful job at whatever he does. So we're all just waiting for this film. And for right now, I'm going to play the trailer. So here it goes.
Hundreds of people today phoned the ZBC saying they sighted an unidentified flying object.
With a bright radiant light. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
It was the absence of noise I didn't like.
People from all over Zimbabwe were phoning the BBC to say, we've seen something weird.
There were 3 of us that saw it. Myself, the co-pilot, and the pilot in the other aircraft.
No wings, no nothing. Shiny oval thing.
Ariel School, 19th September 94. Could you tell me what you saw on Friday?
The silver thing in amongst this clump of trees.
We saw this black figure running.
His face was like this and his eyes were down here.
I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet.
When you looked at those children, they were absolutely credible. And whereabouts was it?
In the trees over there.
There was a big group of kids pointing and making a noise and shouting and screaming.
The panic spread. Am I safe or am I not safe?
He's a Harvard psychiatrist.
Meet Dr. John Mack.
We came away convinced that an extraordinary event occurred here.
I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world.
How did that get communicated to you?
It came through my head.
Somehow there was a message about pollution from the way he was staring?
Yes.
I was just a hard-ass journalist. I could handle war zones, but I could not handle this UFO thing.
I mean, I never felt this could derail my career.
Angels, yes. Extraterrestrials, no.
John is lost at this time.
This journey is literally to pick up the pieces and put them back together.
Oh my gosh.
I was right on the log when it actually happened.
You are the ones who drew those funny pictures.
Something that I'll never ever forget.
I've drawn this again.
But I usually kept her quiet.
People think you're crazy.
You feel so alone in society.
Why is it that we tend to want to shrink this powerful phenomenon to our notions of reality rather than being able to stretch ourselves to expand what we know and to admit that we don't know?
Would you like to see him again?
Yes.
And if you saw him again, what would you do?
I'll ask him some questions.
What would you like to ask him?
I'll ask him what is he doing on Earth and what does he want with us.
Wow. Randall, that every time I see that trailer, it's just so moving. It's really, really something.
I just had the same experience. I hadn't seen it for a while.
Yeah. And you were right there with all those children, later on filming them. And what an amazing thing. And we're going to talk tonight a bit about some of the how many interviews do you think you've done with this? And it's not just the children.
Well, there was a certain amount of people that would not want to go on camera, but I interviewed a good 43, I believe. And I just had somebody contact me 2 weeks ago who I've been trying to get in touch with him for years. And it's just, I'm so happy because he was a primary witness, and it's just going to be great to interview him and find out what the details of his story were.
Now, is he but it's too late. The film's in the bag, so to speak, right?
Film's in the can. Yeah.
In the can. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Film's in the can.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's amazing. And I, like with Francis today, I really feel that's just that I want the kids to come out and speak, you know what I mean? They're not the kids, they're young adults now, but they're just wonderful people, and from all different walks of life. And as far as everything I research and look into and people I talk to and everything else, this really happened.
Right.
So
right. I can't think of a better time. Let's just bring in the clip of we recorded earlier today with Francis in Madagascar, and here it is. I'm going to bring it on right now. Hang it. You're a good-looking guy.
You look great. I love your hair, man.
It's kind of difficult now. Talking from a position, because now that I've done a regression, that is the freshest memory of sort of like the events that I now have, because this kind of brought to light a few details that I otherwise before did not have, or details that might have disappeared within the time of the event, and obviously us going through life and growing up. But small details like the lights, and how now I have a clear picture of there being these spheres. And these spheres were about my size, the size of an adult human, right? And these spheres were kind of rotating around the craft in an anti-clockwise motion. And they were glowing bright white. Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of the way I look at it, the light that a lot of people were seeing were being emitted by these spheres. All right. And as we kind of progressed through the story, they kind of switched behavior in a way. And as if they were being repelled by a magnet, one at a time, the spheres shot off in different directions. Right, then leaving the craft itself, which because there was no light now shining on the craft, you could tell it was a silver sort of color of the craft. And this is the most vivid and direct memory that I actually do recall, from the regression and from past memory as well.
Now, did you actually see what other people had seen as far as like the physical being?
Yes, I did. by account, there were actually 3 beings. 2 of them kind of remained within the line of sight from the playground to the craft. And another one, which is also one of my most vivid memories, was one of the beings actually darting from the craft towards the direction of the swimming pool. The swimming pool, which was probably about 200, 300, 400 meters to the left of the playground. And the most peculiar thing was the way in which it moved, because it almost felt as if it would disappear and appear a few meters ahead of itself, almost in a blinking fashion, and not in the normal linear fashion that you'd expect someone to be moving, Wow.
And did you see it did it look like it was floating? I've heard other people say they never saw it actually touch the ground with its feet.
No, in this case, like I was saying, it would just be the appearing and disappearing. So I would just warrant to guess and say, yes, it probably looked like it was floating, but at no point did it ever look like it was physically running, if I could say that.
Mm-hmm. How about that? Just like to ask you, and I'm sure this will be in the movie, the Ariel Phenomenon, but how much has this changed your life? This one thing changed your life?
Oh gosh, there was the longest part of my life when we're probably silent about it. And I guess within that silence, this whole sort of experience brews within you. And the longer that happens, I guess there comes a point where you decide whether you're going to confirm everything you know, or you're going to not deny it as such, but find a way to come to terms with it maybe not being true, right? Mm-hmm. And to be very honest, this was one of the biggest reasons why I had to do this for myself, which is why I actually sought out a hypnotist, right? Mm-hmm. This was never to sort of go out and just blindly confirm that, yes, what I believe, but I was also kind of hoping that it might not have been true, because either way, the answer that I was going to get was going to help me in one way or another move forward with my own life. Right.
I get that.
The self-doubt was starting to creep in, and I was just ready for just a hint or an answer or something along those lines. But it has affected me in a lot more ways than one. First of all, the way I think. I'm very open-minded to a lot of things. I'm very tolerant to people and their thoughts and their ideas and their viewpoints, because here I am with one of the most craziest stories anyone can actually sit here and tell someone. And so, yeah, that kind of makes me believe in people a bit more, I guess. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I always give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to weird and wacky things. Yeah.
I can absolutely understand that. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sorry you couldn't come on the show live, but I understand it's in the middle of the night for you over there. So you take care.
Oh, it's all good. Bless you guys.
Good to see you. You look great, by the way. You look really great.
Randall, you look good too, I have to say.
No, thanks.
Get some sleep, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye, Francis.
Bless you guys.
All right. Well, that was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I got to say, this is the third student that I've talked to out of the 65, and I know you talked to, you said 43 or so. They're so authentic. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know another way to put it. Everything about them is just so authentic, and there's there's a lot of emotion when it comes to, Francis maybe didn't show that a lot, but there are a lot of emotions that this thing has brought up as such an early, childhood thing. Has anyone that you're aware of talked about having any, like, what do they call it? PST? What's it called?
PTSD?
Yeah, syndromes from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And in what way? Nightmares.
Nightmares. That with some people that still continue to this day.
Really? And you had
one
mentioned
of the things.
Yeah,
go
ahead.
He pointed out a really a good fact that a lot of people, not just in Ariel, but in this phenomenon, they have an event happen and they keep quiet for a long, long time. And that, just holding on to something that big is challenging, very trying on a person's life. And I just thought he put it so well into words, that process of, being very silent about it and then finally saying to yourself, I got to deal with this.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting how he said, the doubt creeps in because, it's interesting. I've been communicating with someone that had an amazing UFO sighting. I'm trying to get her on the show for at least a little while and talk about it. And she said something like along those lines, like, all these years go by and I'm wondering if I just dreamt the whole thing. But, she had conversations with her parents and relatives that were right there when it all happened. But she just says it feels like almost like a dream at this point in her life. And I think that happens.
I think so. It's so out of the ordinary and you don't know where to put it. And then, at least more so in the past, you're surrounded by people that don't believe you.
Yeah.
And you're afraid of, getting ridiculed or, having a big question mark on your shirt, when.
Yeah. So I'd like to get,
through.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get right back into that. But I'd like to get something out of the way, just to get it out of the way at this point, sure. The first part of the show, because, people are already wondering this COVID-19, how is this affecting the release of this film?
It's definitely affected it. But I got to say, I had my brother died tragically in September. And
it was actually the night you were on the show last.
It was?
Yeah, remember that? Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yep. It was right after you got off the show last time you were on. And I'm really sorry. That was a tragedy.
Yeah, it was a tragedy. And and then, as soon as I got over that, COVID came in, and but I did get a lot of work done. I went out to AFM, the American Film Market, and started talking to distributors and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's because there's no content being made in Hollywood right now. All the productions have been shut down, which actually may be helpful for the film, actually.
Yeah.
Because there's all the Netflix and Amazon, they're all starving for content because they're running through it like, extremely fast. I think they're out.
And that's going to be like, for instance, if all of a sudden social distancing was gone tomorrow, it's still going to take a long time before, something can be produced and filmed and edited and,
sure.
ready. So,
That's
there's still a lag now, I'm sure, of things that were backed up, but that will be over, and then they will be clamoring for everything.
Yeah, that's true. I really wanted this to be a theatrical release, and I don't know if that's going to happen because of COVID. But whether the film comes out on Netflix or Amazon or whichever takes it, I'm still going to have a theatrical release when I can, you know what I mean? When we're through this time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Historically, has that ever happened before where there'll be a release online and then in theater after, or?
Sure.
I mean, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah.
So the number one question I still get, I think I tell you, I have your banner up on my website, and I still get people that will ask me, when can we see this? So we don't really have any idea exactly when still at this point.
I get all kinds of, people think I'm working for the CIA and withholding the film, and no, really, people don't, not everybody, but the holdup on this film has been financial all the way along. I mean, I would have been done a long time ago if I didn't have to keep going out to raise money. But we're talking to a whole bunch of different distributors, and I'm not going to be making that decision once I go with the distributor. Excuse me. Then they're going to sell it to Netflix, Amazon, that's who they're going to be marketing it to, and those people are going to have a big decision on when the release date is. But looking at it now, it's probably going. My preference right now is going to be the end of this year or the very beginning of next year, unless something extraordinary happens, because I'd like it out today. You know. Yeah. But you also have to think about where people are at right now and whether they can really take this film in, with COVID going on. And I don't know. There's a lot of things, everything once COVID happened, everything changed. My thinking had to change. I had to, consult and talk with a lot of other people to see what to do, and see what the market's going to be, and when the right time to release this is. But yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's just who's gonna be the winner, so to speak, as far as picking it up.
Right. Well, I can't wait to see it. And it just actually, when's the last time that you actually sat down and watched the whole thing all the way through?
3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Yeah. And how do you feel when you watch it?
I always feel moved. Always. Yeah. I mean, for the first year, when we had a final cut, 2018, and I cried every single time for a while. It just really moved me emotionally, and then I kind of got through that part. But yeah, it's very emotional. It's very it's full of wisdom. I'm not in the movie, thank God. I chose not to be in the movie, and I'm glad, because it's not a movie about me. You know what I mean? It's about these kids and this extraordinary event.
Yeah. And kudos to you, because I've seen a lot of documentary filmmakers like to put themselves right in the middle of the film. Names unnamed here, but still make the film be almost as much a part of them as the incident. And I'm really glad that you focused just on, the children, where they were at and where they're at now.
Yeah, I had a lot of people say, "Oh, you should put yourself in the movie." It's like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, yeah, it's their story.
Yeah, that's awesome. And of the 43, we've got just 1 minute here till we're going into break. But of the 43 that you interviewed, where did you have to go? In general, how many places did you have to visit to meet up with these people?
A lot, because they're all over the place. But I mean, even in Africa, I had to go to, Zimbabwe, all over South Africa. I literally covered the entire country of South Africa, which is rather large. It's a little bigger than the size of Texas. And that was a really challenging trip, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
I had some moments, but yeah, I all over the place. And then England, and then Canada, across the United States, there were several in Canada. So I did 3 trips to Africa, and then England and Europe, people in Germany. Anyway, plenty of places.
Amazing.
Yeah, a lot of travel.
All right. So hang in, everyone. We'll be right back right after these messages. Tonight is Randall Nickerson, and pretty excited about the show. And we'll be taking calls in the last half hour of the show tonight. And I'll put that number up on the screen. And also, we do have Bill helping out behind the scenes, and he is going to be screening the calls. So here we are back, Randall. And as far as these people that you interviewed, how willing was most people to actually get involved in this?
I would say half-half. Yeah, I would say 50% were willing, and the other 50% didn't want to go on camera, or every single one of them had the story, but it became, I think it really came down to fear of ridicule and fear of how it would affect their careers and things like that.
Has anyone ever given you an example of how it's affected them in that way, in a negative way, with ridicule?
Oh yeah, I mean, even the kids when they were younger, everybody around the area had known it, and kids from other schools were calling them names and joking about, oh, these are the kids that saw the aliens, So they got picked on right away. And not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are there is there a percentage of people that just absolutely do not want to ever talk about it or think about it, as far as you know?
Oof, yeah, I know several. I mean, those are some of the most traumatized people of the kids. I get it. I mean, I get it. Like, why,
Well,
it's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah. Let's talk about the person that just came forward and obviously didn't make the film. How did all that come about?
I've been contacting him for years, 8 years anyway, and never got a response. And then I got an email. On Facebook. And we started. He said, I want to talk now, and so we've been starting an email conversation that's going to be probably very long. He was interviewed by John Mack and several other people as well. Just a really good witness, You got a good look at him.
Wow. Now, will you do what you can to make sure that when the film is released, that everyone that was a witness that you can reach will be aware of it coming out? The people that did not want to participate?
Yes. And I hope they come forward. And I think they will, to be honest. I think the aftermath of the film is going to be an awful lot of these people and coming forward.
I was wondering that myself, and almost makes you wonder if there could be some type of little recap after, with some of the people that will feel more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, I would like to do that, actually. If that, I want to see what happens after the film and see who comes forward. And I have a million other interviews that aren't in the film. So, but I would really be interested. There were several people that it really kills you when you do a good you talk to somebody and you're just thinking, oh my God, I have to get this on tape, and then that person doesn't want to do that. And their story is brilliant and detailed, and it's just, it happened. It happened a lot during this filming.
I'm sure it did. When time goes by, a lot of people can get like a distorted memory of something. Did you see some of that, and were people aware of that happening?
I didn't see it. At all, actually. I only saw it in kids that were, there were a couple kids that didn't see it at all or anything, but wanted to be part of the story, because they're kids, and they were on the other playground or something, and they didn't see the entire event happen. So I saw that in a few cases, but in general, I mean, these kids were interviewed in 2 days, 3 days after it happened, and then a week later, and then 2 weeks later, and then 6 months later, then 3 years later, and then I think I was the next one to interview them. But I think I missed one news outlet that interviewed them. But I mean, the stories have been consistent since the beginning.
Yeah,
that's astounding to me.
It really is, considering how young they were. A lot of them were at the time, and the believability of this. I'd like to play this clip now of Selma Siddick. She was actually I've had her on the show twice now, and
cool.
She's brilliant. So I'm going to play this clip of her right now.
I asked my mom, I said, did you really believe me? And she said, well, you weren't a child who lied, and I may not have believed in what you saw, but I believed in you. So I guess in a way I kind of did. My dad doesn't really say too much about it. Again, very supportive in the fact that he knew that I was not a child who lied, and so therefore supported me. May not necessarily have believed in UFOs or extraterrestrials himself, but knew enough that I wouldn't make something like that up, or let alone be influenced by other people. That just was not me.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, I love talking to her. She's just so well spoken, and some of the
sharp girl.
Yeah, some of the things she has said, I mean, is just it's really amazing when they talk about something like the beings and the the similarities that the children are saying. But I remember Selma saying something like almost like a porcelain type skin, that these things had, and so bizarre. And I guess the biggest takeaway that I get from Selma when I spoke to her in the past was how difficult it was for her to leave when she was locking eyes with this being, and she was concerned about her sibling or siblings. I can't remember.
Her sister.
Yeah. So she wanted to turn away and see how her sister was, and she said it was one of the hardest things she ever did in her life, was turn away from that stare.
Yep.
I mean,
a lot of kids went through that.
Yeah. And of the percentage, just a rough number, how many people actually felt like they got some type of message?
That number I don't actually know. I'm guessing it's around 12 or maybe more, but it depends on whether the person wanted to share it, because that's sort of another stretch, right? Like a lot of the men didn't want to talk about there being beings. They were fine talking about the spacecraft being there, but they didn't want to talk about the beings, and they sure as heck didn't want to talk about some message coming into their mind. So I think I know for a fact that there's a lot more people that had that experience that are not talking about it, and I hope they do.
Yeah. Selma said she just plain didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
that's what I love about Selma. She's she's very honest and straight with what she knows and doesn't know, and that's the best kind of witness, in a way. And there's some really great people in the movie, and some great just story and personality and adventure. Yeah.
Can you relay some of what people thought that they were having communicated to them?
It was mainly around the environment and what we were doing to our environment. That was primarily the messages that were transmitted through the mind somehow, like psychically, and a concern of what we were doing to ourselves.
Wow.
Which is amazing to come out of a village, not a village, but a very small farm community in Africa. Granted, the farm community and the school was mixed race, mixed religion. I mean, it was a perfect place, actually. If you look at the demographics that were at that school, you got a sampling of just about everything.
Mm-hmm. And what about, did any of these children talk about how they, with this telepathic communication that supposedly that they received, did they talk to their parents about, or was some of them just not even want to? They did.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was difficult for a lot of kids that weren't believed, that were, their parents just didn't believe them. And then other kids' parents believed them. There was a paramedic who worked with 3 of the kids because they were super traumatized. But I spoke to a lot of the parents. That was part of researching this whole thing. And that was interesting to see how that happened. How the kids were taken by their parents, and how religion entered into that fact as well. How the religion of the parents affected the children. Like some of them were like, this was the devil, and pretty hard stuff for kids when you really have seen something, to be ridiculed and also not believed by your parents. That's tough.
Yeah. So there's basically a lot to deal with it. If you can talk about some of the other people that you have interviewed for this film, actually.
I interviewed that are in the film,
or it doesn't matter if they're in or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed at least 150, 200 people. A lot of them were the day before Ariel, the day before that on the Wednesday. People that had witnessed strange things that whole week. So I have a ton of those interviews, and I'm not sure how I'm going to put them out, but I want to put them out. Interviewed the teachers, interviewed pilots, and that's a whole interesting thing too, because I am still waiting to hear back from 2 other airline pilots that were in the air that night. I have three pilots already that were witnessed this thing in the sky the night before, and so yeah, I interviewed the groundskeeper. I interviewed everybody I could, parents and groundskeepers and anybody that had any clue to what had happened, because I was really investigating this full on, and I wanted to know everything about it to see if there were any holes in it. As a filmmaker, this is my first feature. I sure as heck wanted to make sure that this was correct, and so I spent a lot of time interviewing an awful lot of people, and then also professional witnesses and the I'm trying to think, Richard Haynes and Nick Pope and any of the top line people in this field to sort of get a sense of what their take was on the whole thing. You know, I didn't just make a movie about this school. I actually went and studied the whole phenomena in major depth. And the other ones I interviewed was, of course, all the people surrounding John Mack and his life, because that was a very big research project in itself on John. Dr. John Mack, he was the psychiatrist that professor of psychiatry at Harvard, who went over to Zimbabwe soon after the event to interview the kids.
Yeah, that whole part is really interesting, how he just up and did that, you know, and there's a lady in Boston that was with him there. I can't remember her name.
Dominique.
That's right.
Kalamanopoulos. Yep.
Yeah. I've reached out to her a few times, and she's just not interested in talking right now about it. But yeah, very interesting. You know, I just had a text, a personal text from a friend of mine that's listening to the show, and he says, "This is all great." He says, "But I don't know what you people are talking about." So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. I know it's a little late in the game here, but to give like a nutshell there are a lot of first-time listeners.
Sure.
And this was back in 1994. If you want to just kind of recap the whole situation, if you don't mind, and hang in there with the long-time listener. Hang in there for this this part. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Basic 1994. In a school in rural Zimbabwe, something was in the sky and then landed down outside the playground of this primary school, and the children were all out in the playground and watched this thing happen. At least two beings, I've heard up 2, 3, 4, but there's basically two beings. One had some kind of hair or covering on his head, and the other one was bald, and they were short and were dressed in a black skin tight suit. And at least one of them approached the playground, and the kids got really freaked out and 100 kids ran into the staff meeting that was going on in the school. And some of the kids got messages about the environment during that close encounter with this one particular being. And that's pretty much the story. And it all goes on from there. One of the things that I found really fascinating, because I did a lot of study on it, was were there any other reports of these creatures being in black? I've heard grays, I've heard different, descriptions, and the fact that they, was part of verifying the story for me was like, all right, has anybody else ever seen these things in black? And there were 2 cases that I found that they were wearing these black skin tight suits back in the 1960s. I think one was in the 70s, and it was just abnormal. If they were going to make up a story, they wouldn't have had them in black. They would have been gray, and
yeah,
it's an interesting fact and there's a lot of interesting things that don't fit the media, don't fit the media explanation of them, which is great because that's what makes it unique, in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. And so, but did you say there was confusion as far as like some thought they saw them dressed in something else, or are you saying
No.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
No, they were in black. Yeah.
And
that's
one
universal.
I know some said that they thought one of them had long black hair. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So John Mack had gone into conversation with these children that were reporting the hair, and asked them about, well, what was it, hair or was it a covering, and they didn't really know what it was. It was just something that came down from their head,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a big one for me. I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard of that before. And then some of the children actually reported right away early on that one of them had hair, the other one didn't. The one that came closer to them didn't. Anyway, so that was, there's been a lot of those little things you go, well, okay, let me think about this. But yeah, but the thing is, it's been consistent.
Yeah.
Throughout.
I remember when I was talking to Selma, she said that she could have reached out and touched the being. That's how close it was to her. Did other students actually report the same? I mean, was this thing right close to a lot of them?
A large group, yes.
Yeah.
A very large group. And you know, it wasn't just 62 kids, by the way. There was a lot more that saw this. 62 kids that drew drawings. The other students were too young, and this is a little inside information. The grade 1s and 2s were not part of that. You know, the teachers decided to leave the grade 1s and 2s out of the whole thing. They didn't want to scare them more. So
wow,
yeah, that was a big decision.
That's the first I've heard of that. Yeah,
yeah, nobody knows about that, and now they do. So, but what's interesting about that is that I went down and looked for those grade 1s and 2s, and to find out what they saw, and their stories are just as incredible as the rest of the kids. It's the same story. And actually the younger kids, I believe, saw a lot more because they were out earlier on the playground, which is typical.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm interested to hear about the pilots. What are they seeing that, I mean, what are they saying that they saw?
They saw a light in the sky that came across. They were at 25,000 feet, and they saw it on the left, off the left wing, and they didn't know what it was. They thought it was possibly another aircraft, and it went right in front of them, past at an incredible speed, and literally crossed the horizon. And when you're at 25,000 feet altitude, you have a huge horizon that you can see, and that thing went from one horizon to the other horizon in 2 seconds.
Wow.
I mean, it was, they saw it coming, and then it just went by, and they saw it go over the other side of the horizon, and it was it was in front of them. It was within the atmosphere for sure. So, you know, that and people like those pilots wanted to talk about it. They didn't forget that.
What do you, no matter what case it is, no matter how great it is, and I think this is one of the very, very top in my book of all cases. What are the skeptics? How do the skeptics try to explain this one off? What are some of the things you've heard?
I've heard about rocket reentry back in September 14th, a couple of days before Ariel, from a Russian spy satellite that went up, and the rocket body passing over Africa, which there is evidence for. I went to NASA and did a FOIA with them, and to try to find out any information. I also did this whole, there's more information coming out of this that I can't share yet, but I can't wait to share it because it's pretty mind-blowing. But I did a huge investigation into the space program and what the space program was doing at the time. So if skeptics, I think they'll probably talk about that, and that's okay. It doesn't matter to me because I have the pilots on the next night seeing this thing racing across in front of them. And then, Ariel happened, and that was so unique. Like, it wasn't just people talking and hearing about some strange thing in the sky on the Wednesday. It wasn't, there's no evidence that that's where that came from. And then Thursday, and then the day after Ariel, another event happened. So something was going on there, but I don't know how the skeptics are gonna, look, if the problem with the skeptics is they're not out in the field. They're not out there. They're not out there studying it. They're not out there interviewing people, looking at things, doing research. They're just not. So I just don't give them any weight. You know, if they don't believe this, just fine, you know, and I don't care. You know, it's just, you'll eventually know at some point. We all will.
Right.
Yeah. And this is one case of thousands, tens of thousands of cases around the globe.
Yes. But and it must be your opinion too. This is a pretty darn good one.
Well, what makes it, yes, because, and the primary reason is it was filmed soon afterwards. You know, that was really
the interviews. You mean
the interviews of the kids was done, and parents and other interviews were done early on, and continued for 3 months. That's priceless. That doesn't happen usually, you know.
Yeah.
But the BBC reporter, I mean, it was really him who initiated the importance of it. And then Cynthia Hind, and then John Mack was called.
Yeah.
So there's a whole, I can't wait to talk. I can't wait till the movie's out so I can really tell you everything, because I really would. It's a fascinating story. Yeah. Just the details that aren't in the movie, and the ones I really want to share that are, I just can't talk about it until it's released. But
yeah, well, we all want to see that too. What happened the day after?
There was a driver from the school who he left the school and he ran into these creatures on the road. And he was so
creatures, really,
these creatures on the road, according to him. And he swerved away to get, so he wouldn't hit them. And he his truck went over the embankment. Huh. And he didn't know, and he was a native there in one of the villages, and he didn't know if they were his ancestors or what they were, alien. I mean, the reason he did talk to John Mack about it, because he thought they were potentially may have been aliens and something that the kids had seen the day before. But there were several other events that happened. Yeah, I'd have to go over them, but there was a woman missing for 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah, during that time period.
And this was all in the same area.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another thing that's kind of puzzling to me, is when something happens in the same area repeatedly, when whatever they are, you talk about moving 2 seconds from horizon to, from one side of the horizon to the next. They could go anywhere they want, yet they're in this particular area, and it makes you wonder why. And that goes for a lot of UFO incidents that are, Rendlesham Forest, say, and any of those, just in one area, a lot of things happening. Very strange.
That's true. Yeah. And these things can move at incredible speeds, and you think they can could be in Japan in one in 1 second, and in the United States in a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And that they're
so it does make you wonder why they focus on an area. If this is and it sounds like, there was you said there was a lot of things going on there. You don't think any of it was hysteria related or anything like that?
There could have been some, I'm sure. But for the most part, everybody I talked to was pretty grounded in what they saw. And
yeah. Now, there was a there was a controversy, and maybe you can clear this up. Someone had told me that a teacher had come forward recently. Do you know anything about that? And said that she was a witness.
True.
It is true.
Mm-hmm.
Have you spoken to her?
Yes.
And did that make the film, or was that after the film?
No, it's in the film. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yep. You sound hesitant to give that away.
I am. Well, there was a lot of decision around. I mean, that was a pretty big deal that not just one, but I think two had seen this thing. And the one that I'm absolutely 100% positive did see it, because the kids reported she saw it, passed away. She left the school 2 weeks later, and then she passed away a year later.
Oh, wow.
She was older and in her 70s or 80s, and and the other teacher, I knew when I first interviewed her that the way she was pointing out where everything was as if she had seen it.
Oh.
And that struck me. And then when I went back again to Africa, she finally she said, I actually saw it. I just was too embarrassed to say it. Where did that information come from? That a teacher?
It was going around when I was at a UFO conference. People were talking about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah.
I was trying to keep that secret.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
This is what's called live radio.
It just adds credibility to the whole thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's talk about you interviewed other teachers too. So yes. What was that like for them when all of a sudden all these kids come running in? What did they have to say about that whole situation?
I think it was there was a few that were just believed the kids 100%. And then I think it threw a lot of the children and, a lot of the teachers, it threw them off quite a bit. I mean, you have kids coming in saying there's a UFO and aliens out on the playground. What do you can see it in the interviews of the teachers. Some were believe there was actually one teacher who disbelieved it, and I actually tracked him down because I wanted to know what he thought. He was one teacher that thought the kids had made it up, and I found him, and he was still at the school, and I interviewed him, and I said, well, what do you think about it? I'll put that video up at some point. Because he didn't believe it back then, and I asked him, well, what changed? Why you believe it now? And he said, yes, it happened. And I said, well, what changed your mind? And he said, the consistency of the stories over time.
Wow.
So that was interesting. And but yeah, you had all kinds of teachers, different reactions.
I mean, whose idea was it? One of the teachers' ideas to have them start drawing what they saw?
I think actually, well, that came from the BBC reporter contacted Cynthia Hind. Cynthia Hind called the school and asked to make sure they did drawings.
Smart move.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was her job. She was a journalist and a researcher. And it's too bad I didn't get to meet her before she died. Yep.
Well, and people, just for the people listening to the show, if you just Google basically this incident, Rua, Ariel School Incident, you'll see a lot. And there's actually some drawings on your website too, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's might as well give that
ArielPhenomenon.com.
Yeah.
ARIEL, which is the name of the school.
Now, I think it's great that, I mean, have you actually seen some of these drawings in person? I mean, that they saved, which is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder when a lot of them brought them home, if their parents, said, hey, throw that out, or I wonder if that type of thing happened to some of them.
I don't think any of those pictures went home.
Oh, I see.
I know a lot of the kids even today are like, where's my drawing? And it's I've had several moments where I find their drawing and I send it to them,
Oh, wow.
because they were like, I don't remember what I drew, but I knew I drew. So there's still several people I have to get those drawings to. Yeah. Once the film's out, I'll definitely send it to the kids.
And
kids, they call them kids, but
yeah. Yeah.
feels like I have a family.
I bet.
You get you have pretty good relationships and deep conversations with people around this, and you get to know them over such a long time.
Yeah. And you say it's a long time. When you were doing these interviews, do you spend like a day with someone and then do the interview? Yeah.
I'm ridiculous when it comes to, I shoot and shoot and shoot. And but that's how I know I can get a good interview is time, because people are anxious in the beginning, and once they start to calm down, then the interview really relaxes,
Yeah.
and you can feel it, they're not on the spot. And that's just something I know and do.
Yeah.
And a little training in psychology helps for sure.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I look at it as a therapy session, actually, when I do an interview.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I bet it is.
And sometimes it's therapy for me.
It's, I've heard it said that a lot of times people just want to be heard. They want to be able to tell their story and not necessarily on film, but still they just want it. They want it to be heard. And
the best thing you can do is listen.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's true. Yeah. And so I think this is, like I said earlier, this to me is one of the most, and I thought it right from the very beginning, the first time I watched, John Mack's interviews way back when I first started looking into this topic, I thought, oh my, what could be better than this? Is all these, children basically saying that, the same thing or something very similar. Nothing about it seemed to be a hoax. And the thing that I think is kind of funny is that the teacher that believed that, nothing was going on, that there was something that they made up. How could anyone orchestrate something like that? For all these kids to have such a consistent story, it's impossible.
Yeah, I can't see. I went down that road of hoax and psychological. I had teachers look at these interviews of the kids. I had psychiatrists look at the interviews of the kids for verification. Do you believe these kids are telling the truth? And they, I did my work on that, and they totally agreed that they felt they were being completely honest. Their body languages were correct. Little things that just gave away through the face and eye movements that they were telling the truth.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we, as the public out there, and what we can find on YouTube to see the John Mack interviews of these children, did you actually get to look at the archives of all the footage or most of the footage?
Oh yeah. I've looked at everything.
Yeah. And I bet a lot of it is like, I can understand how people have to edit things out and, but how many hours of footage would you say there was?
600 total, but a lot of that was B-roll.
Wow.
And then archivally, I think there's 30 or 40 hours. And then
you're talking about your own film, but I mean, what about Mack's filming? How much did you have to look How many hours of filming did he do?
Boy, let me think about that. I would say he did probably 4 or 5 hours. No.
Oh, okay.
That was his, and then there's all these other news outlets and reporters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been through all of it.
You know, you keep mentioning the BBC, that interview, and I know that's really important, but I think it, you know, to have someone with the degree of psychology that John Mack had, you know, from Harvard. I mean, just the way he talked to those kids, you know, they were just so comfortable. I mean, he made them feel as comfortable as possible in his questions.
Well, he was 20 years as a child psychiatrist.
Yeah.
So yeah, what he added there was a different, a much different question and answer. You know, much more relaxed, and you know that he was a professional. And John being there, you know, I don't know if we would have heard about this case at all.
Right.
If John didn't go there and do his own interviews, I don't know what would have happened if this would have ever come up. And there's so many cases like that just get glossed over and are forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because the right people aren't contacted or the right people aren't there.
Yeah. No, I get sometimes I'll get from a listener, they'll send me a story I never heard of, and it's, you know, some pretty amazing UFO stories in history that, you know, aren't talked about. You know, we kind of go back to the Roswell, the ones that, you know, keep coming up over and over again. But yeah, there's a lot of really fascinating stories. And speaking of that, there's a lot of schoolyard stories.
Oh yeah.
And have you looked into others just out of curiosity?
Yes. I went to Wales where the Broadhaven incident happened. Yeah. 15 kids witnessed this thing by the sewage plant area behind the school. And a bunch of people in town. I went there, talked to 3 of the witnesses, and they're all credible, but they didn't want to go on camera. I interviewed one of the teachers, and I got all their drawings from what all the kids drew from Broadhaven, and it's amazingly similar to Ariel.
And what year was that?
Amazing. That was 77. Yeah. So I looked into that, and then I started collecting and receiving newspaper articles from somebody that was very helpful of all the sightings all around the world that happened at primary schools.
And
there's a dozen anyway.
Yeah, I think there's even more than that.
Probably.
Yeah, I had someone that wrote a book about that. It was on this show. Oh my God! Nice guy. I just can't think of him right now. I apologize to him. Yeah, but yeah, very interesting, and it makes you wonder. You know, the impressionable. You know, that's what you have when you have children, impressionable. And you know, I don't think that's an accident.
I don't think so either. I think primary schools are. Yeah, that age, you're absolutely right. That affects their entire lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, and people are the younger crowd anyway are already super open-minded about this. And that's just going to carry forward until we finally just say, okay, yeah, they're here.
You know, it's kind of funny. It's like a lot of times I'll say, personally on this show, well, you know, I'm not saying it's aliens, you know, we don't know what it is and all that. But when it comes to this particular case, the Ariel phenomenon, I don't think you can say it's much other than I can't, you know, if it's someone from the future, you know, that would be amazing too. You know, from 1 billion years in the future or whatever. But you know, it's definitely, there's some type of alien, whether they're alien to us for sure, whatever was described by those children and what they saw. So, I mean, that's a case where I have to say it's probably aliens, you know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else would make sense.
I don't either, to be honest. If nothing got out of that thing, it would be a totally different story.
Yeah.
But things did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember some of the descriptions, like one was on top of the disc. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And yeah. And it was just two or three.
Usually there's 4.
4. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And what that number 4 came up over and over and over in interviews of people that didn't want to go on camera.
I thought that.
Yeah. So I know that's probably the case. And, there was at least 1 or 2 that had stayed back by the craft itself, and at least 2 approached. Yeah.
Wow.
There wasn't more than 2 that approached. And then there's the one that he was Francis was talking about it running across the field. That was witnessed by a lot of people. And in the same way that it ran and it would appear, disappear, do bizarre things.
Yeah.
The whole thing was bizarre,
Yeah. And, the one thing that I've never really heard anyone talk about is, did they hang out until these beings got back inside the disc? So they just took off? Did they, like in a herd? Did everyone just all of a sudden?
Everybody ran into the school.
Yeah. And just left them all out there. I'm just surprised. Did any of the teachers want to go out and take a look?
2 of them did.
Oh, and it's these 2. Those were the witnesses.
Yeah.
I see. I can't wait to hear that story.
Well, yeah, Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't immediately think everything's alien or, myself either. A lot of news has come out in the last 2 years that's been pretty interesting, for sure. But it's go ahead.
No. I wanted you to continue your thought there.
Yeah, I think we're seeing, things happening for sure. And I don't consider these things a threat necessarily. I know there's a bent on that this is a threat, and good luck if we're going to pick a fight with those guys or whoever these things are.
Yeah,
we have zero chance. Zero.
Yeah. And I know you hear stories of maybe we should have shot it or something like that. I mean, that'd be the last thing you'd want to do to something like that. But I guess if you have, so are you talking about what has happened since the Pentagon has, the
New York Times, Leslie Keane, and the Pentagon, Lou, and Harry Reid just did a podcast that was very interesting, quite revealing, and I think the story's out. The story's out in a lot of ways. And it's not just new, this has gone back for decades and decades. And, I get why the people that first figured out that this was something coming from somewhere else kept it a secret. I get it. I would have done the same thing because it's so disturbing on so many levels, and they've had to evolve us to consider the outer space and creatures from other worlds through movies and things like that. But I think something changed 2 years ago, and there's forward motion on the whole topic. And it's something that we should all be, like, we're concerned with COVID right now, and it's like everybody in the world, we're all together, we're all going through the same thing. And I kind of feel like that's what it's going to take for all of us when we really come to terms with this other presence out there in space that's coming here. I really feel like that's going to be a world moment that we're all going to share, because it's about all of us. It has to do with every single one of us, whether you've seen one of these things or not.
I just I'm going to give myself a little bit of a plug here because I've been painting a lot since this whole thing. Actually, I've sent you a couple of pictures of some paintings that I've done, but I try to do, I'm a little embarrassed by this one because you can't make the gimbal UFO look right. I tried, or make it look like a pretty painting. Here it is. I'm going to bring it up here. Let's see. This is it. I guess you can't really see it, but
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, it's ugly. You can't make that a really good painting, but there it is. So anyway, my website's martinwillisart.com, and if you enter the coupon code UFO, you get 50% off. There's my little plug on any painting. That whole situation has really certainly opened the door, and I do feel like even lately that the ball is rolling in the direction that call it disclosure, call it whatever you want, but I don't think the world's is not coming apart because of the possibilities that
No.
And
I've had conversations with a lot of pilots, Air Force pilots and Pentagon pilots, and a lot of people, lieutenant colonels, stuff like that, just in the last 3 years. And man, if they know.
Yeah. I watched recently. I had Philip Mantle on. Was it last week or the week before? And he is in a series called The Alien Autopsy. Basically, Secrets Revealed, and it's a series you can buy on Prime, Amazon Prime, for like $4.99. So I bought it and I watched it, and it's actually really, really good. And I'd suggest anyone go over there and watch it. And but it's kind of like these things that just seem to be coming. And by the way, the Alien Autopsy film is a hoax, and Ray Santilli is brazen, just saying no, it's real. It's really quite amazing to watch him. But anyway, I did want to give that plug to Philip because it's a really good, well worth watching. I love the old footage, and watching the old footage of so many, like Kehoe and so many of those people that were trying to make a difference back in the day. And here we are 50 some odd years, 60 years later, still talking about it. And but I do feel like there is a forward motion anyway.
Yeah, so many people over the years, since back then, have put everything on the line, their reputations, their careers. It's stunning when you look at all the people that have come before these moments, who really fought for disclosure to the rest of the world. Yeah.
You're right. They put everything on the line for that.
Yep.
And John Mack was a perfect example.
Absolutely.
And I know you've looked a lot. You've done some work with the John Mack Institute, haven't you?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And if he wasn't a tenured professor, he would have been out, basically.
Likely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and
they were threatening to take his tenure away.
They were.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I don't think that wouldn't happen today. I don't think.
Probably not. But their intention was to destroy his reputation. That was really what the goal was.
Yeah.
Through what happened, through the whole sort of witch trial thing, their main goal was to discredit him.
Yeah. But he persevered. He got through it.
He persevered. I think it did hit him a little bit. I think it did hurt his reputation a bit. But yeah, he did persevere. Yeah.
And I wonder what he would have done if he didn't have that accident in London. I wonder, what he would have changed in the world, back then with, he wasn't that old when that happened.
That's true. Yeah, he would have been consulting with probably ATIP. Not ATIP, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, Lou and those guys. I forget the name of the
To the Stars Academy.
To the Stars Academy, TSA.
Yeah. So just switching gears a little bit. Last July, we talked at some point, and you maybe it was July, I'm not sure. You were on your roof. I'll let you finish that story.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was on my roof at 10. I went up there about 9:40 at night, and I was going up there to adjust a security camera. It was on the roof, and anyway, I was adjusting it and doing. It's very technical. You have to wear a video screen on your wrist and go through the menus and all that stuff, so you could really maximize the light at night. The sensitivity at night, and so I'm up there, and this thing is in the sky. I saw it, and I was like, oh, it's probably an airplane or whatever. And then I looked at it again. I'm like, that is not an airplane. And it was heading toward me, and it was this orange like ball, literally super bright, and it flickered at a very high rate of speed. And it was coming toward and down toward where I was. And I didn't know what it was at all. I didn't make a judgment. I was running things through my head, like, is this a drone? Is this a Chinese lantern? What is this? And made absolutely no noise at all. And when it got closer to me, it passed behind the tree that was in front of me, which is a very large oak tree. I mean, this thing was at 200 feet by that time above the ground. And it still was beaming this light, it was blinding, this orange weird, it was just totally weird. And then when it passed behind the tree, it had, these branches come up in the tree, and it blocked out the light of this bright orange light. And this thing was, I could see, it blocked out the orange part when it went behind the branch, and I could see these platforms coming out on each side of the light, and they were really thick, like 12 feet thick, maybe. I mean, they were really thick, and there was a silver line in the middle, super shiny, like chrome, and it was black on top, black on the bottom. And that's when I kind of got like, okay, I have no idea what this thing is, and it's pretty damn close to me. And it started to move. I mean, it was always moving, and it was moving weirdly. It like wobbled slightly, and it moved through the tree, and I kept looking at it, and I was thinking of, what am I doing? I'm on the roof. What is this thing gonna do? I have no idea. And there was no windows on it or anything. What was also interesting was when that orange light went behind the tree, those platforms were lit by like a really dim white light with no source. You couldn't see a light source or any kind of. It was just, the whole thing honestly was exotic.
Wow.
The whole thing. And then and it made absolutely no sound. I fly planes. I've seen all kinds of stuff, and I know what air displacement is. When something's moving through the air, you can hear it. You know, it creates the displacement in the air. There was nothing. Wow. And then it came out the tree. I caught a glimpse of it again, you know, because the orange light had moved around somewhere. And I don't even know if it was a light. I don't know what it was, but and then I saw this sloping dome on the top, just for a frame, like a frame, and then it went black. And then I'm still thinking, what is this thing? And then it went through some kind of transformation, which I don't understand. It was like jumbling around, and then the orange light came back on, but it was much bigger. And then I watched this thing go from this orange ball and depart over the horizon in a second. I mean, it was jaw-dropping. That's when I knew this was not a drone. It wasn't a Chinese lantern. It wasn't any of this stuff. It was jaw-dropping. I stood up on my roof for 20 minutes, just like, and I felt like a Neanderthal witnessing something from the future. Wow. And I'm not even saying, I don't even know who was flying that thing, but we should all be concerned that these things are out there. I don't know. I don't care who's flying them, but they're there. And it's, you know, I've been very quiet about it, you know, because of the film. I didn't want to say anything, but it really, really disturbed me, you know, for a long time. And then 45 days later, my brother died, you know, but I mean, it was a hell of a year last year, but that was a big one. I wrote about it every single day after that happened. And I mean, there's so many little details, because when you see something unknown, something that could potentially pose a danger to you, you start filming at a very high rate of speed. You just, like in a car accident, you know, like that kind of thing. You know, everything seems slow motion, but the reason why is because you're filming so fast in your eyes. You're taking, you know, a higher rate of pictures. And anyway, so the whole incident was just humbling, and why, I have no idea. I live in a 700-acre forest, so there wasn't many people around, though there were other witnesses. There were other witnesses from South Deerfield. I try to get a hold of this guy, and it's the same thing. And I got to tell you this. So after this incident, I called one of the, I won't mention the name, UFO reporting agency.
I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
Yeah. And they didn't send somebody out, and I filed it, and he never came out or anything. And he just wrote it off as a Chinese lantern. And I was upset. I was like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And so I called the head of that organization. I said, look, man, whoever's working out here, he's not doing a good job of this. So I ended up getting connected. I said, you know what, I'm going to go to another agency, a scientific based agency. And I did, and I'm working with them still, because I gathered an awful lot of data during that time. So, and then I went to the police department. I reported it to two police departments, and pretty much got told that you probably saw a meteorite, or, you know, I filed reports, but I just got a real taste of what people go through.
Yeah.
When you report. And thank God these science-based guys, they sent a guy out here. We walked through the whole thing, and showed him what I had, and, you know.
And I'm not going to ask you to show this, but did you take footage?
Yes.
You do have it.
Mm-hmm.
That is really interesting.
Yes. That right now I'm getting that to these people so they can really analyze it. I mean, I need to analyze it further, but to have it on tape and also have visually saw it myself. The cameras, unfortunately, are wide angle, so it's twice as far away as I was. But what matters to me when I look at it is the behavior, what it does.
Yeah.
And the audio. There's zero sound. Zero. And that thing was big. It had to have been at least 70 feet long, and definitely probably 10 or 12 feet high.
Wow.
I mean, everything about the thing was weird. Everything about the thing was exotic and strange. And I don't know where it was from or anything, but.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've been keeping it quiet.
Yeah, that is a really great story. And I do appreciate the fact, because I know you were a little hesitant to talk about it, but I really do appreciate the fact that you did decide to talk about it. But we are now taking calls. I see we have one person on, another trying to get in. So we have Chris calling from Alabama. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris.
Oh, it's my fault. Hold on. Here we go. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. You have a question for our guest tonight?
Yes, I was just listening to the last bit there where you had a video of your encounter. I was wondering if you could possibly post that online for others to see, or if that was sensitive to you.
I want to have it analyzed first. It's going to eventually end up out there, but I just want the science guys to look at it really carefully first. But it'll be out eventually. And there's a couple others that I have also. So for some reason, this area that I live in is some kind of pathway for some pretty strange vehicles, in my opinion. Yeah.
How about that? Anything else, Christopher?
Nope, that's all. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks. I'll get it out there eventually. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. We also have Rob. Rob is calling from Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, thanks for having the show, and thanks, Randall, for being on. My question was, I know you mentioned something about some original video interviews that were done by John Mack, and you mentioned something like 5 or 6 hours, something like that. I some time ago I had looked online to try to find them because I was really interested in seeing all of the video. Is there a way for others to view these videos?
Not yet. I know somewhere out there, and I think the Mack Foundation took them down for right now because I think they want to. I'm not sure how they want to release them or show them. That's a good question because I think it's important, and I think it's important that a lot of these interviews that didn't make the film. It's important that I think that they'll be seen, that they can be seen by the public.
I very much agree with you and hope you're able to do that. And for this particular event, I suppose any event, it doesn't seem to. I can never seem to get enough information about it. I mean, you kind of get the understanding what happened from interviews that you've done and the others like Salma. But I would like to see more if I could.
Sure.
Thanks, Randall, and thanks, Martin. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for the call, Rob.
I think after the film is out, I can do a real bullet point progression of how everything happened and a lot of missing information that I can't speak about yet.
Yeah, well, we all can't wait. I mean, that's exciting to know there's more coming. So the line's open. The number is 855-472-5483. We have Andy calling from Connecticut. Repeat caller, always with great questions. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks. So my question for Randall is, I'd love to hear his thoughts on, with regard to the alien message in the Ariel School Incident of environmental problems or disasters. Does he think that there's any chance that that's strictly the aliens capitalizing on the hot button issues of the day to send a message to us that we should be concerned, and that, knowing that they may be able to control or read our thoughts? What are his thoughts on the fact that this may not be sincere? It's just a cover. I'll take your answer off the air to let other people call in. Thanks, guys. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, well, in Africa at that time, in that year, global warming wasn't a huge topic at that time.
Right.
It wasn't a mainstream thing at all back then. It was definitely being talked about, but all I can say about that is I think the messages that those kids got were correct. And we're finding that out every day, every single year for the past 15 years or so. I believe I'll have to make sure these numbers are correct, but every successive year, like this year is warmer than last year, the planet's getting hotter. And amongst so many other things that happen when the climate changes, the ice melts and animals start to migrate to areas they never were in before, which creates an awful lot of chaos, particularly in Africa. Anyway, so that's I don't think there was anything conspiratorial about what happened there. No.
Well, one of the things that you never really hear discussed, but the fine particulates that are in pollution, in one way or another, kill several 100,000 people a year. It's just, that alone, never minding what it's doing to the planet. It's really something else. We have a longtime listener from Colombia, Garrett. Welcome to the show. Garrett, I saw your question in chat. I was going to ask it, but welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you on.
Oh, thanks so much. I guess I got impatient.
No, I'm glad you called in. And a longtime listener, you're in Colombia, and you've said some nice things that you'll love to listen to the show, and it really gets you by down there. And I always appreciate hearing from you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, kind of what you guys were talking about before. We are all starved for content right now, and me especially. I'm in a foreign nation, and my girlfriend really also appreciates this topic. So my question for Randall was: will there be subtitle options or dubbing? Something? She only speaks Spanish. Okay.
Yes, there will be. Yeah, for sure.
Great.
We're pretty much all set up for that. So that'll happen in the next couple months. Yeah. Because it's going to be worldwide, and we're going to have to, I don't know how many languages we're going to have to do this in, but quite a few. Yeah.
Anything else, Garrett?
Okay. Yeah, yes, sir. One more. Will you be doing bonus features, kind of like these extra interviews that you had? Thanks so much.
Yes.
I'll take it off the air. Have a great time, guys.
Hey, thanks,
All
Garrett.
right. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, there will be, there'll be extras. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. But once the film is off my hands, then I'm going to focus on the extras and DVD extras, and a lot of really interesting interviews and scenes that didn't make the movie.
Oh, that's great. That's exciting to know. We have Nellie from Los Angeles. Nellie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hey, Martin and Randall, thank you for taking these calls. My question for Randall is, have any of the witnesses ever experienced an unusual scent or smell after an encounter? I remember reading some sisters in Brazil who had an encounter, and they talked about the putrid air when near the craft and the creature they had seen. And I wonder if there had been anything similar with the Ariel School witnesses.
No, I have not heard anyone talk about smell. Because primarily they're in this very large field. It was primarily visual and auditory things that they experienced. John Mack actually asked a lot of the kids that question. I mean, a lot of people that interviewed the kids before him, you know, 2 other people, had asked them, didn't ask those questions like, what did you hear? What did you smell? What did you see? All those detailed questions. But right at the moment, I don't think there was anybody that mentioned a smell. But I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I always just wondered if like the craft or anything would leave some kind of, I mean, anything, whether the creatures or whatever substances are used to propel such a machinery. And and you had talked about sound and that there had been like a high-pitched whistling sound. Had there been any other mentions of like any like low frequencies or any other weird kind of sound frequencies?
Yep.
Other than the whistle?
Yes.
Okay.
If you hear the whistle, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
Whistle, blue light, you're not going to have a good day tomorrow.
All right.
From what I know and understand.
All right. That's it, Nellie.
Thank you for this, and look forward to the film.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the call. Next, looks like we have Smith calling from Connecticut. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine. You have a question for our guest?
I'm just wondering, you know, after all the different things that he's investigated, I've been watching since Leonard Nimoy in the early 70s. But do you think the overall thing is what's going on? I mean, are we building up to something big that's going to happen, or you know, what's your take on the overall thing of all things that are happening right now?
That's a great question. I really appreciate that question.
I've watched Martin Willis over and over and over, and every other James Dolan. So what's the overall picture of what could be happening, and what can we expect?
Well, I feel like it's another species, life form, kingdom of creatures that have been around for God only knows how long. And
right.
There's a huge gap between where humanity is and where they are, just from God only knows how many millions or years of evolution. So that's a big, I mean, I kind of see that's maybe trying to close up, you know, bridging that gap. That's going to take hundreds and hundreds of years if that's the case. And that I feel like slowly over time, they have acclimatized themselves to us, much like you do with a wild animal. You know, in taming a wild animal, it takes a lot of time, and you got to show up and you got to be quiet, and you got to stand still, and you got to wear the same clothes every day, every time you encounter it. And, you know, they slowly get used to you, but it takes a long time before they take food. And, you know, and there are some animals on this planet that can't be tamed. So that's a whole nother thing, is that, you know, we never think of ourselves as like the creatures or animals that we are, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I just feel like, you know, we're also breaching space, you know, and we have since all this really started. And that this could be possibly their neighborhood, and they're concerned about us getting off our planet. And that makes a lot of sense, because I would be concerned as well. So I don't know how the gap is going to be bridged. But I feel like they are acclimatizing themselves to us slowly.
Could very well be. Hey, Smith, we got a bunch of calls waiting, so thanks for the call. All right. Next, we have, we're not going to be able to take any more calls after we have 3 lined up. Hello, Steve from California. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Martin. I'll make this quick. We know through UFO history that some cases stand out, and this incident, I think, stands out as one of the most important contact incidents. I know people are very interested in this case. I have a room in Facebook called The Truth Be Told. In the past years, I would post articles regarding this case, and people are just so interested in this case. I get so many people that comment on this. So, also, so at least to my question, Preston Dennis has wrote a book about this, and we know that this has happened at many schools where you mentioned. My question is, why do you think these visitors have chose children? And second question, I've been collecting UFO footage for 25 years. I have some tremendous footage. Will you be having footage in your film, or what do you think of some of the footage that are being out today? Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the question. Yeah, there's not, in the film, we don't use any UFO footage, because we just, you know, the whole idea of special effects or anything was kind of took away from what this film is really about, which is about people. It's about this event. We didn't want to do any sci-fi kind of, you know, anything. There is actually there is one genuine UFO or whatever you want, UAP, that was caught on a night vision camera. That is in the film. But what was his first question? I forget it.
Yeah. I thought it was about footage, but you know, maybe there was maybe it's time to take another call.
Okay.
All right. We have Rob from Florida. Rob, welcome to the show. We only have a couple minutes left here, and we have another call waiting. So how are you?
Oh, fine, Mr. Willis. I'm a new subscriber to your channel, and thank you so much for sending those shows to me. Good evening, Mr. Nickerson. This is one of the most astonishing cases I've ever read, and it's very high quality. My question to you is, sir, has any recent readings been done on the actual site as far as radioactivity?
No, and the readings that were done at the time were done with basically homemade instruments. They did actually soil samples. They actually did a good job. They used electromagnetic field detector that one of the investigators was an electronics whiz, and he built that, and he built a Geiger counter, but it wasn't super sensitive. So I'd be interested to see if there was anything on that site. I just didn't go in that direction.
I mean, I would now if I went back, because I do have a Geiger counter now. But yeah, there was a lot of work done on the site, but there was nothing that came back as any red flag, you know.
Oh.
That's very interesting. Well, listen, best of luck on your film there. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
All right, excellent. Well, our last caller just dropped off, which is just as well, because we only have a couple minutes left here. So, Randall, why don't you throw out all the information that you can as far as people being able to watch the film and all that.
Oh, as far as websites and
yeah, all that and
yeah, you can watch the trailer at arielphenomenon.com. We are just finishing our new website, which is really cool. We have upgraded that, and also you can reach us on Facebook. If you go to Facebook and put in Ariel School Film or Ariel School Documentary, it'll come up, and there's a lot of activity on there. We have a Twitter. We have all the services. We're everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Also,
can I say something? We have had, I just want to put a shout out to Nikki in Africa, who was such a big help, and Rebecca and Ann and Chris and Rick and so many other people that have just been, I'm the head guy, whatever, but the work they've done has just been amazing. And I was so lucky to have a really great team,
Excellent.
And I just want to put that thank you out to so many people. People who have given money and all that. It's super important. And I just want to make that thank you.
All right. Well, we're totally out of time, Randall. So thank you so much. All right.
Thanks, Martin. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Have a good one.
All right. Well.
Whoops, I just cut him off. All right, everyone. So we'll be back next week with Dave Halpern. And thanks so much, everyone. And have a good, safe week. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.
And it hits me, oh my gosh, this is that triangle.
There's explanation for everything that occurred in the Rendlesham Forest incident that doesn't involve aliens at all.
It was completely silent. It comes right over our heads.
He saw a classic flying saucer really standing in the clearing.
He turned over to my father and held his hand, and he looked in his eyes and he said, "We're not alone."
Welcome to